Welcome to INKOnversation, the podcast that fuels your entrepreneur spirit. Brought to you by Inkomoko. We deliver thought-provoking conversations with industry leaders, game changers, and unsung heroes, all making an impact in their communities and shaping the future of business. Let's grow together and transform the world, one business at a time.
Welcome, Hassan. My name is Nicole, Umubyeyi, and the People and Culture Advisor for Inkomoko, and I currently sit in the London office. We're super excited to speak with you today, and we would like to give you some space for you to introduce yourself.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast, Nicole. It's a joy to be here. I love Inkomoko. I love the work that you do, and really excited to share a few thoughts around what I do, hoping it can add value to your listeners. So my name is Hassan Kibirango, and I am a leadership trainer and coach. I also lead a program called the I Lead program here in Rwanda, which is a program that was conceived by a gentleman called John Maxwell. John Maxwell is the world's leading leadership expert. So I lead the program here. I'm also a pastor. I do that. It's another hat that I wear. But out of all, the biggest joys of what I do is to be a husband and a father. I'm a father of 4. It's a beautiful season in my life. But then I also do mentorship and coaching. Every year, my wife and I take on 30 young professionals. We call it the 30 under 30 mentorship collective, where we walk a journey of mentorship with them for a whole year.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Hassan. So, as today's a Monday, we would like to jump right into your book, The Gift of Monday. As many have heard of it, we would want to hear more about your inspiration and why you decided to share it with all of us.
Yeah, so the book, The Gift of Monday, was conceived in the COVID-19 lockdown. So I'm at home in 2020, and I come across an article, and this article was saying that in the US, 80% of working males that are attacked by either a cardiac arrest or a heart attack, 80% of working males that get heart attacks actually get them on Monday morning between 8 to 9 a.m. So it intrigued me why people were being enveloped by heart attacks and some dying on a Monday morning largely. And actually, last year on November 17th, in the Guinness World Book of Records, they gave Monday the world record of being the most hated day in history in all the week. I was like, what? When I did the research, I realized that there's this actual disease called Monday blues. At the foundation of it is that people didn't hate Monday as a day. Monday is simply a representative of something deeper that people hate. Somebody hates what they do. Maybe it's paying them less than what they desire. They can't necessarily quit because they have bills to pay. So there's this whole entire shadow that is cast on this idea of Monday. So I went against the grain to write a book that really pushes against that narrative and say, look, you do not have to hate Monday or to hate your work. You simply have to change your mindset in order to love what you do.
The Monday blues really do exist, and I think they start kicking in on like a Sunday. So I love that your book does emphasize the importance of making the workplace conducive for employees. At Inkomoko, we do have biannual happiness audit. Now, happiness audits is where we ask our teams, like across all our locations, how they feel about their position, the company, and what they can do. What we can do to make them happier. So this is really where we have open conversations, and I think these have really powered growth. So we want to hear from you. What do you think are some of the strategies or initiatives that you've seen maybe out there that promote like a positive work environment?
I find that in organizations or teams that push for a positive work environment, they're led by leaders who are by and large open and vulnerable. And they're leaders that also build a sense of trust within the team. So they are trustworthy, you can trust them, but they also extend trust. So when you have a higher threshold of vulnerability and a sense of openness from the leaders, you are invariably inviting the team to be open and vulnerable. Open and vulnerable teams where there is trust are usually teams that are in a positive work environment. The other thing that I find is is when there is a space for what we call radical candor, where truth is shared and where you can have positive conflict, because there's such a thing as healthy conflict, where people feel like you can still tell them the truth of the mistakes they've made, but they know that it comes from a place of care. So you challenge people directly, but then also you care for people personally. Usually those are ingredients that create for a positive workplace. The other one that I see is a space created for creativity and innovation. Teams are vastly creative and they want to add their creative juices into the mission and vision of the organization. So when you allow for creativity and innovation and also allow for mistakes as a leader, I think that all those ingredients together make for a positive workplace. And I like the fact that at Inkomoko, you even have moments where you create happiness audits. I've never heard of that. And I tell you this much, that if you did a happiness audit in many organizations, I'm sure that they would come off wanting, because people are really, really unhappy at work. So I'm so proud of Inkomoko and the fact that you're leading the way in this regard.
Thank you. And I like that you highlighted about the radical candor, and it's also one of our feedback philosophies that we've also incorporated in our culture. And honestly, it's like our Bible. Yeah. So I think even everyone who's joining in Homoko, that's one of the things they get to learn about. Some people come from workplaces where they didn't have such an opportunity to give their feedback. So yeah, I like that you hinted on that. And now while we're still there, as we're talking about different initiatives and strategies, maybe what would you say to some small businesses? How would you maybe speak to them? How would they cultivate such strategies in a more practical and affordable way?
I think for me here, I would shoot straight to the heart of the leaders, because many leaders who run small businesses, they start the business with the main aim of making sure that the bottom line grows and they enter profitability. So they are on the grind every time. But I keep telling leaders that it's important for you to know that your biggest and most important factor of production in the growth of your business are your people. It always boils down to your people. And people are not a cog or just a statistic. You're dealing with humans, with emotions, with cares, with anxieties that have all these nuances around them. So when you're planning your strategy of growth and your strategy of creating a work environment, please know that you're dealing with people, emotional people. And if as a leader you don't take care of the people first before taking care of the business, then you're going to have trouble of an unending high turnover in your business. Because when people feel cared for, guess what? In turn, they're going to take care of the business. You're going to lower turnover. You're going to have growth in your business. So that is my advice to the leaders.
I know you did hint on the importance of changing your mindset for Monday, and I also think you do highlight that on your gift of Monday nuggets. So, because Monday is the one dreaded day, we want maybe to hear from you. Could you maybe elaborate on how one actively cultivates and develops soft skills?
Developing soft skills, number one, is to understand that, first of all, soft skills are not necessarily taught in school. So you won't learn them as a skill set just as you specialize in, IT or whatever. Most soft skills are learned through nurture. Nurture, that is the families where we are raised. But if you come from a place where your family was dysfunctional, what do you do then? Because you need soft skills to thrive as a professional. Because our hard skills can only take us so far. You can be the most brilliant, the most innovative person in the company, but if people cannot work with you, if people hate your guts, then you cannot thrive further. You also can't work in isolation. We need to work around people. So usually what I do is I encourage people to give themselves permission to grow through learning and finding mentors and reading books and watching videos, because there's a lot of information that we can arm ourselves with that can help us grow in our soft skills. And soft skills, we are talking values here. We're talking, things like emotional intelligence, the ability to manage your own feelings and emotions, and also manage relationships based on understanding their feelings and emotions, the ability to know your personality and what triggers you. So there are so many tools out there that can allow for you to learn and grow. And people have written tons of books that can help you grow in your soft skill. But it comes first from a place of permitting yourself to grow.
Would you maybe tell us some of the books you would recommend to someone who's looking to develop these skills as well?
Yeah, so I am such an avid learner, and I like the fact that every skill that we need out there, be it a soft skill or a hard skill, has been put into a book by somebody. And now books can be read, they can be listened to, you can watch videos that come out of the book. So the information here has been decentralized for us. And for many of us, it is free because we have access to the internet. So really, we have no excuse not to engage with books. So some of those that I would recommend would be, first of all, I love Radical Candor. It really encapsulates the idea of giving feedback in a healthy way. And I appreciate the fact that you do the book at Inkomoko. Yeah, there's a book by Angela Duckworth, Grit, very good book. It talks about the perseverance and that sense of not giving up over a period of time. I would recommend all the books by Carl Newport on productivity. He's knocked the ball out of the park when he writes about productivity. But if I was to recommend two from his books, that would be Deep Work and another book called Digital Minimalism, because we need to learn to be minimalists in this digital era because it has consumed us so badly. Then I would definitely recommend all the books from John Maxwell on leadership. He writes a lot on self-leadership and growth. But if I was to recommend one book from him, one of my favorite books is The 360-Degree Leader, where he gives the tools and skills of how to lead from all places in an organization. You can lead up. It's possible to lead your leaders. You can lead across within your peers, and also how to lead down if you're a leader. So it's a very good book.
So I Lead Rwanda at Maxwell Leadership Foundation has this vision and mission to raise the next generation of Rwandan leaders who practice transformational leadership for a better Rwanda. What does that entail?
So I Lead Rwanda is a program that takes the finest values-based leadership lessons and it's a curriculum, basically. We take them to schools. Right now, we are in about 200 schools, and we have almost 100,000 students taking this curriculum. Now, this curriculum is a soft skilling curriculum. It's different from the usual curriculums that we have or lessons that we do, math, geography, chemistry. This deals a lot around the values and the morals of students. And the process is that it is a peer-to-peer curriculum where students sit in groups and they talk about these values. We give them manuals to be able to talk about these values amongst themselves. And it's really to help them to grow to be a balanced human being. Formal education trains us for skills and knowledge, which is good. But I realize that it doesn't do a lot in training us for values and morals. Yet, when you educate somebody holistically, you train for the head, but you also train for the heart. So the goal of preparing the next generation of leaders in Rwanda comes from the ethos or the understanding that skilling for competence is good, but also skilling for character is good. In fact, it is important to skill much more for character, because if somebody has no character, they could be the most competent person in the room. They are still going to create a lot of damage rather than a lot of good. So it's the mix of the two. Maybe if I'm to share two quotes here that speak into what we do. Aristotle, a Greek philosopher, he said that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And another one, Teddy Roosevelt, who was an American leader, he said, to educate a person in the mind but not in morals is to educate a menace to society. And the Rwandan government, through the Ministry of Education, has what they call the competence-based curriculum. And it's supposed to do those two things, to train for skills and knowledge, but also to train on values. So that is where the I Lead program comes in, to help to instill values-based leadership in the youth of tomorrow.
I love that. And I feel like this is a very good opportunity for the young generation to develop the soft skills we were talking about earlier, like at an early stage. And I really think the next generation of leaders is in good hands. From your experience, what do you think are some of the key responsibilities and traits that leaders must possess to create impactful change?
The role of a leader is invaluable in creating any form of change. But I will share just 4 quick roles that a leader must play in order to create, or responsibilities, if you will, in order to create the impact in an organization or a team. So the first role of a leader is to inspire trust, to be the leaders that other people desire to follow. Trust is the most important ingredient in building a healthy team and obviously in building a healthy organization. So inspiring trust. Number two, second responsibility is to create vision or to inspire vision. Effective leaders create a shared vision and a strategy, and they also communicate it clearly and effectively to others to join them on the journey and fulfilling this vision. The third role or responsibility is to execute on strategy. To make it easier for people to follow them, they have to get the results that they want, and leaders must not just think big, but they also need to think, how do we execute the mandate, the strategy, the goals, objectives, all the way through to completion? Because you find different kinds of leaders. Some leaders are good in inspiring vision, but they are not very good in executing or leading execution. Then the fourth one and last one that I can share with you is to coach potential, because building leadership in others is the core responsibility of every leader. And effective leaders develop the leadership potential in others to help them improve performance through coaching, but also create a ripple effect of leaders to become the next leaders in an organization. So those four: inspire trust, create vision, execute strategy, and coach potential are the core responsibilities of any leader.
Leadership can tend to be a broad concept, and it can also mean different things to different people. Maybe from your own perspective, what does leadership mean to you?
I will borrow the definition of John Maxwell, my mentor and coach. He says that leadership is influence. Really, bottom line, that is what it is. It's the ability to influence the thoughts and actions of others to create the necessary change and transformation in an organization, in a country, on a team. It's really that ability to influence people. And how you influence people is by playing the four responsibilities that I talked about. And there are many, many more others. So the broadness of the concept of leadership can be broken down into one word: influence, influence, influence. Because everything rises and falls on leaders. And leaders who influence others are leaders who create change.
While we're still talking about leadership, would you share with us some of the biggest misconceptions about being a good leader?
Some of the misconceptions about being a good leader is some people think that being a good leader is you have to be nice and agreeable all the time. Yeah, and leadership obviously has to come from a place of leading, from a place of vulnerability, but you don't have to be nice and agreeable all the time. Because when you ask people, what do you love about your leader? Is that they're so nice, they give us room to do ABCD. Now, that needs to be tempered. It can be a misconception. Being nice and agreeable all the time, sometimes it's good, but it shouldn't be all the time for a leader. The other thing is they talk about flexibility. It's important, but there are certain things that for a leader should be inflexible. There are certain principles and fundamentals that should never change, like your character, like truth telling, like integrity. So sometimes people say you have to be flexible, and that can be a misconception because flexibility has its place for a leader, but there are certain places where a leader needs to be unwavering in the things that they do. Yeah, so those are some of the misconceptions that I find that could be addressed in the subject of leadership.
So, as a man of many hats, we're going to now talk more about your entrepreneurial hat. So, you are one of the co founders of one of the largest multimedia organizations in Kigali. And we want to just hear from you. Was this a natural step for you creatively? And maybe would you also share more about how this connects with with your many hats?
No, it wasn't a natural step for me. There is somebody who modeled entrepreneurship and leadership for me, and that was my brother. But there are so many other people along the way that have really inspired me to grow in the different things that I do. Because I love reading, I had to get into writing. I read so many books, I had to get into writing. So many people inspired me there as well. So the other thing that really kind of brought out the leadership streak in me, or the entrepreneurship streak in me, was the circumstances that I went through while growing up. We had so much luck, and I had to take care of some siblings and myself, pay school fees. So I found myself gravitating towards business. But ultimately, one of the things that connects with all the different hats that I wear, leadership coach, authoring, mentoring, is just my outlook in all that I do and my outlook is transformation and creating value. I love helping people. I love serving people. One of the things that drives me to do the many things that I do, or what connects the different hats that I wear as an author, leadership coach, mentor, my pastoral work, is just my desire to see people transform and become better, and also become transformational leaders in the spaces where they are leading, and just my quest to create value and help others find value and purpose in their lives. I actually live by a mantra that my purpose in life is to help others find theirs. And how I do that is through the different responsibilities that I take on and the hats that I wear.
What advice would you give entrepreneurs out there who would like to know how to balance multiple roles?
My advice is simple: prioritize and distill your time into blocks. It's called time blocking. Actually, it's also a concept by Cal Newport, the author that I recommended. You're going to be bombarded by so many things that will demand for your time, your energy, and your skills in a day as an entrepreneur. Please learn to prioritize and sift through and say, this is a task that I cannot delegate. It's a high value task. I will put it as a high priority task of my day, and I will delegate the low value tasks. So prioritize. I believe that that's the best way to balance the multiple roles. You cannot do everything. That's why we hire people to help us with their skill sets to do the things that we cannot do. So entrepreneurs, prioritize.
I think that's really good advice. So as we come to the end of this conversation, I would like to ask one last question. So from your extensive work and experience, what's the one crucial life lesson you believe everyone should learn at some point in their life?
Quite a number of lessons, but you've said one, so I'll keep it up. This one is very, very important for me. And it's just an advice that has come from the mistakes that I have made on my journey of leadership. My one encouragement to people, crucial life lesson, is as you work, integrate your life into the work that you do, so that you don't build a business, you don't build a career at the expense of living. It's Dolly Parton, the country musician, who made a very profound statement. She says, don't be too busy making a living that you forget to make a life. Okay? So I find that so many people, they get thrown into the career and they work their lives to death. They work their lives to anxiety and depression and all these stresses. So it's important for you to integrate your work with your life and build a life of rest, build a life of recreation, because those two are important even as you build your career. So that work-life balance is very, very important in every person's life, because you can only stretch your body, your mind too far before it hits rock bottom. So we should never forget that. Our life is fragile. It has limits. We cannot work like machines because we are not. We are human beings. So we need to find a place of rest and a place of recreation.
Thank you so much. I like that you mentioned that, and it's also one of the things I'm trying to learn myself, because this work-life balance is usually not a thing that comes naturally for most of us, because we feel like we'll be appreciated more if we keep working. I think it's also, I think it's a good thing that you mentioned that. I hope also someone out there is going to be able to learn that. So thank you so much, Hassan, for having this conversation with us. We hope we can hear more about your work out there. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole, for having me. It was a joy having this conversation. Thank you.
At Inkomoko, we're dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs across Africa with the tools, resources, and knowledge they need to flourish in today's competitive business landscape. Now we're bringing that passion to this podcast, taking you on a journey through inspiring stories from around the globe.